Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I'll never forget the day I was assaulted by a Karen in a parking lot. It was a busy Saturday afternoon and I had just finished up some errands at the local mall. As I was walking back to my car, I noticed an open, disabled parking spot near the entrance, which would make it really convenient for loading my packages into the trunk. My grandmother had recently gifted me her disabled parking placard since her vision had gotten too poor to drive anymore. Even though I'm not disabled myself, I figured there was no harm in using the placard just this once to make it easier to get my shopping bags into the car. Boy, was I wrong. I pulled into the spot perfectly, put up the placard, and started loading my trunk. Just as I was organizing the last bag, I heard someone clear their throat loudly behind me. I turned around, and there was this blonde woman glaring at me, hands on her hips. "Excuse me, you can't park there," she snapped at me rudely. I was a bit confused since I clearly had a disabled placard up. "Oh, sorry, I know I'm not disabled, but my grandmother gave me her placard to use since it's easier for me to load the car. I'll be quick, though," I replied nicely. Well, that set her off. "How dare you!" she shrieked. "That is my spot! I park there every Saturday. Get your car out of there immediately." Now I was really confused. "Wait, do you have a disabled placard? If so, I can definitely move for you," I offered. "I don't need one of those placards. I always park here, so this is my spot. Now move your car or else," she demanded. At this point, it dawned on me that she was one of those infamous Karens I had read about online. I tried to reason with her calmly. "Look, ma'am, this is a disabled spot. You need to have a valid placard to park here. I apologize for taking the space, but you can't claim a public disabled spot as your own personal parking space without a placard." Well, that only made her more angry. She got right up in my face and screamed, "How dare you talk back to me? I said this is my spot and you're going to move right now." I refused to engage with her unreasonable behavior. "Ma'am, I'm not moving my car until I'm finished loading it. You are welcome to call the police or parking management if you have an issue." Before I could even react, she reached out and slapped me hard across the face. I was utterly shocked that a stranger would assault me over a parking space. As I reached up to my stinging cheek, I saw her clench up her fists, getting ready to strike me again. Thankfully, a few witnesses saw what was happening and yelled for security. 2 security guards came rushing over and restrained the deranged woman. I quickly explained the situation, how she claimed a public disabled parking spot as her own, and assaulted me when I refused to move. The security guards reviewed the CCTV footage, which clearly showed the woman attacking me unprovoked. They asked if I wanted to press charges for assault. While part of me wanted her to face consequences, I decided to let it go this time with just a warning. The guards escorted the angry woman away, who was still insisting she did nothing wrong. I finished loading up my car as quickly as possible, still in shock that a grown woman would physically attack a stranger over a simple parking misunderstanding. It just goes to show there are some truly unhinged people out there. From now on, I'll be more cautious about using disabled parking, even if I technically have the placard for it. The convenience isn't worth the risk of encountering another crazy Karen. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I want to start this by clarifying that it is not my story. It's the story of someone very close to me, and I will leave out a large amount of specific detail because quite a bit of info is not mine to reveal. The build-up to the revenge is that this person had a horrible employer. She worked in HR and managed payroll at what was effectively a nursing home. I don't know that they call themselves that, but it's what they are. The company had a bit of a good old boys club going on, with all of the highest level management being older men, who all did less work and got more pay than pretty much everyone else. There were regular complaints from women about being mistreated, and many women were fired for absolutely absurd reasons, followed by their male coworkers getting raises. That, in and of itself, was bad, but it's not what instigated the need for revenge. What caused the burning desire to get back at the company was when the company fired my friend's manager, who was a woman, because she took a week off after literally breaking a leg badly. The HR department was already badly understaffed, so my friend had to take on the responsibilities of this manager without any pay bonus. She requested a pay bonus multiple times, denied each time. A month or so later, the company hires a new manager to replace the old one, at nearly twice the salary. This new manager is an older man. I'm not entirely sure what this guy actually did during the day because my friend continued to do all of the managerial tasks, and she knows that for a fact because the guy's account didn't have access to the systems he needed access to, and he never asked for that access. For 6 months, my friend showed this manager issues with their system, including payroll, and explained that she was not only the only employee who knew how to use the payroll system, but she was the only one with access to it. The sexist douchebag ignored her and made regular comments about how she was replaceable and useless. One day, she loses her mind. She set up a bot with her credentials to automatically assign her pay each pay period, according to her actual salary, so not stealing or anything. She then carefully plans her next move and puts in her 2-week notice, right before a large department-wide week off, and right before her only coworker has a 2-week vacation. She wouldn't have time to train the coworker even if the coworker was in the country. The manager still dismissed her, thinking he could just hire someone who knew what they were doing. Little did he know she had tinkered with the payroll software over her time there. Nothing super awful, but it was very different from what the base software was. She was the only person who knew how to properly use it, and the only person in the whole company, including the CEO, who had access to the necessary numbers to actually run the payroll. When she leaves after the 2 weeks, the company has 2 whole pay periods where they do not pay their employees. They can't. But my friend still gets paid because they never disabled her automatic payment thing. They couldn't. Eventually, they called her and basically begged her to consult with them on their payroll. For the past 6 months, she's been paid $250 an hour for 5 hours a week to run the company's payroll. Fully remote, even though it was an in-person job before. And to top it all off, she doesn't even actually work the 5 hours. She wrote a script on her personal device to process payroll for her. She just has to press one button. She's working another job now, but damn, she really kicked them in the rear for their nonsense. The next one is a petty revenge story. My 17-year-old daughter asked me to post this here. I'm the dad who does as the women in my life tell me, which is how I ended up in a restaurant tonight with snobs. So the characters are my wife, my wife's coworker 1 and her husband, arrogant engineer 1, AE 1, my wife's coworker 2 and her husband, my CPA, and lastly AE 2 and his wife. Each couple has 2 teenage children with us. We are at a Japanese steakhouse in America where the chefs cook in front of you. CW1 and AE1 invited all of us for their youngest daughter's birthday, since their daughter is close with our daughter. So the parents are at one table and the teens at another. At the teen table, my daughters, 17 and 14, order sushi appetizers, mocktails, and shrimp with scallops. At our table, the sake is flowing along with a few top-shelf drinks. My wife and I order our appetizers, drinks, and dinners. We are all paying for ourselves, and I see AE1 and AE2 seem to be in competition for who can spend the most. My CPA and I chuckle at them and stay out of the fray. Until AE2 hears my daughter order and says to her, "Careful now, your daddy is only an agricultural engineer. He doesn't make as much as US real engineers." For context, they are structural engineers with bachelor degrees, and I'm an agricultural engineer with a PhD. I work for governments, private investors, and several agro corporations. I own my own consulting firm. I help build sustainable, reusable gardens, and this work allows me to travel to poorer countries and help them use what they have to start growing their own food. Apparently, these men thought all I did was travel to impoverished places and teach people to dig in the dirt. They believed I did all this work for free and therefore made very little money. I'm not rich by any stretch, but I'm comfortable. We don't do extravagance, so we have savings, and my wife works. However, in 2023, I was awarded a handsome contract to design tower gardens in several states. It's a 7-figure contract over 3 years. Back to dinner. These guys ask me about the most ridiculous things like, is it good to grow onions and carrots in the same garden? They were laughing at me and my work until their wives told them to stop. I chalk it up to drunken arrogance and don't even bother to answer. My CPA was laughing so hard he almost fell out of his chair. Apparently he is AE1 CPA as well and knows the ins and outs of both our finances. AE1 taunts CPA to tell the table what he brought home last year after bonuses. CPA pulled up the figures on the phone and tells us, it's about 1/3 of what I brought home in 2023. The CPA says, I have yours up, want me to share? I decline and he nods. Cue another round of taunts. I go to the restroom and find the waiter. I pay for the whole check and leave a generous tip on top of what they added for a big party. After our sober, the waiter thanks me in front of everyone for the tip and wishes everyone a good night. AE1 and AE2 stare at me for a moment. I smile, nod, and tell CPA to tell them my income last year, after which I simply say goodnight. Petty? Absolutely. Gratifying? Damn right. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I'm a 39-year-old woman, and 8 years ago, my ex-boyfriend, who is now 44, dumped me. I usually maintain good terms with my exes, but he was an exceptionally difficult person to deal with. He body-shamed me, claiming that a woman weighing 64 kilograms was extremely fat and unattractive. He also coerced me into doing things I despised, and he cheated on me for 6 months, refusing to break up until we had gone on 2 trips that I paid for. He went out of his way to inform me of the ways in which his new girlfriend was supposedly better, smarter, meaning more agreeable, and thinner than me. It was so distressing that I ended up in a mental health ward. Moreover, he told me that nobody would believe me anyway, and no one cared how he treated women, so I was free to vent my frustrations online. So I got better, calmed down, and started venting online. I wrote a post titled, "Don't hire this guy." His surname is extremely rare. The only people I know with that name are either in his family or a world-famous athlete, which helped me a lot. In the post, I detailed how he couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months because he believed he was smarter than everyone else and would argue instead of doing what was necessary. I also mentioned that his references were fake, as they were his friends' contacts, not his employers. His CV was a whopping 30 pages long, and no one had time for that. He used this tactic to distract from his lack of experience. I also pointed out that he believed sleeping with a business contact could benefit his career, and that he thought women sometimes needed to be mistreated to see the light. All of this was very much true, and I had screenshots of our conversations to prove it. He never specified that I couldn't talk about his professional life, just our breakup. I have a moderate following on social media, so about a month later, an HR representative contacted me to seek clarification. It turned out he had applied for a job, and I made sure he didn't get it. This happened 2 more times, but I suspect many more HR professionals read my post silently without reaching out. Once, I even received a message from some bikers asking for his phone number. Apparently, he had written about a well-known female racer who tragically died in a crash, insulting her as a dumb person who deserved it. I imagine that phone call didn't end well for him. I check on him once every 2 years or so. He still has no career, no family, and his girlfriends, supposedly smarter than me, run away screaming after a maximum of 6 months. It seems someone did believe me after all. As for me, I am happily married to a wonderful guy, and have achieved some professional recognition, proving that I'm more than just a stupid, fat, and ugly person. The next one is an entitled People Story. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened to me. Hell, it's not even the first time I've posted about this, but seriously, why does it bother people so much when you heat a meal up in public? Long story short, I'm homeless. I don't drink or do drugs, I'm clean, I shower daily, etc. For the most part, you would have a difficult time telling I am homeless. But being homeless means limited options to cook and eat. You either find a way to cook or eat fast food, which is expensive. I can cook a cheap meal for a couple of dollars, but unfortunately, I can't always go back to camp, where I sleep, to cook a small meal. Yesterday, I spent most of the day at the library sending out resumes. I hadn't eaten all day, so I decided to grab a can of beans from my backpack and my hobo stove. I found a spot not too far from the library, city property with a walking trail, a large field, and those large electricity steel wire tower things. Fast food is expensive, so I avoid it at all costs. A cheap meal at a fast food place costs $10. With some planning, that $10 can easily get me 2 days' worth of food. When I'm out like that, I have a small camping pot and some sort of heat to cook. I picked up a small business stove from the thrift store, and you can get the canisters fairly cheap at the dollar store. I typically set up on a picnic table, and the entire meal takes less than 10 minutes to heat. But for some reason, whenever there's fire, the one Karen of the area has to see it and come running to cause me problems. I set up with my chili in my pot, my fire going, and like a crappy video game, a male Karen spawned in, walking his Frenchie. He saw me doing my thing, and I guess the hobo just making his meal offended his delicate senses because he came over in a hurry. He was not there to be a decent person, he came to idiot at me. The man saw me cooking and was immediately aggressive. He yelled at me, "What are you doing?" He said I can't do that here, it's unsafe against the law, and told me I have to go. I've been through this more than once, so I'm now an old school veteran. I just replied with dead eyes and said, "Okay, I'm going to leave once I eat. Have a nice day." That pissed him off. The man was almost jumping up and down like a child having a temper tantrum, telling me that it's illegal to have a fire. It's contained on a portable stove. He said he's going to call the police, and I said, "Good luck with that," and gave him a double thumbs up. The guy got on his phone, made a call, and walked away talking loudly with the police. I fully believe he just faked a call and talked to air, just trying to scare me. As I said, I've been through this multiple times. My food got hot, I ate, cleaned up, packed my stuff away, and went on with my day. That man did absolutely nothing to slow me down. It was barely an inconvenience. My food wasn't even hot by the time he left. If you are a Karen and see someone like me, hurting not one, just trying to cook a meal, kindly duck off, leave me alone, let me go about my business. The next one is an entitled Parent Story. I'm active in a local scholastic chess organization. We set up some formal lessons, provide a place for kids to play or study chess in a more casual setup, and occasionally organize tournaments. We work through the local school system, so we get something of a leg up compared to other similar organizations, as we have venues, some advertising, and a degree of administrative work already done with the schools themselves. I played with this league as a kid myself, and now that I'm an adult, I do some volunteer work for them. Last Sunday, we had a tournament, 5-round Swiss System G30, so this was an event that lasted most of the day. I was running the under-12 division, which is mostly making sure the kids don't claw each other's eyes out, getting things set up and cleaned up after it's done, and doing the pairings as each round finishes and the next one ends. Because it's an all-day affair. While some parents stay all or most of the time, it's far more common for parents to just drop their kids off in the morning and pick them up at 4:30 when things finish. So when things were wrapping up and I was handing out trophies for first, second, and third place, Kay, our second place trophy winner, had no parent in sight and was just kind of awkwardly holding his bag and his trophy looking around. Parents are supposed to be there by 4:30, but we had about 80 kids in just my division of this tournament. So I knew that the odds that at least one will be late are pretty high, and I wasn't worried. Asked the kid if he had a phone, he didn't. Asked if he knew how to reach one of his parents, got his mom's number, called, went to voicemail, left a message reminding her that the tournament was over and she needed to pick up her kid. I can't leave if there are any children still there, so I got to doing some cleanup, which the kid offered to help with. Took maybe 20 minutes to pack everything up, still no sign of mom. I still can't leave, so I got one of the sets back out and asked if he wanted to play a casual game or do a puzzle or anything. He asked if we could go over some of his tournament games, and we spent the next 20-25 minutes analyzing one of his games from the tournament. I'm no grandmaster, but I'm a pretty strong player, so even though he won this game, there were quite a few errors in his play, and I was trying to demonstrate what he could have done better. The kid takes instruction well, and is actually marking notes on his score sheet. Note for people who don't play chess. In tournament games, you write down each move after you make it on a sheet of paper. This is primarily so there's a record in case there's a dispute as to what the position is. It also helps you review the games later like we wound up doing. Our analysis is interrupted by a woman's voice shouting, "You there, what are you doing with my son?" I look up and we have our entitled mother. She didn't look like a stereotypical Karen, but she definitely had the tone and mannerisms of one. I got up, congratulated her son in front of her for taking second place in the division, and explained how we were going over one of his games while we were waiting for her to show up. The kid chimes in with how I helped him realize a few mistakes, and you could see the gears turning in EM's brain. After a second, she bellows out, "You can't do that to a kid! If you mix positive messaging and negative messaging, you'll give him a complex. I know what I'm talking about. I have a degree in psychology." That took me off guard, but I wanted to finish cleaning up and go home, so I just said how it's already past 5, and I wanted to finish cleaning up, and I was sure the kid wanted to get home. Surprisingly, EM didn't want to stay and pick a fight further, simply getting her kid and leaving. I figured that was the end of it. Not a pleasant experience, but a short one. Well, I was wrong. She sent our organization 21 separate emails demanding that I be fired. Her degree in psychology lets her know how damaging I could be to her precious boy, and how I'll rob him of any desire to keep playing by confusing him. It's apparently abusive to tell a child that even though he won a game and that's great, there are better moves he could have played during that game to improve his play. She's already gone through this kind of crap with a coach her husband hired for the lad. She fired him and now she wants the league to fire me too. Today's emails have taken a new tone. She must have found out somehow that the kid helped me clean up, because instead of strident demands I'd be fired on the basis of the profound psychological harm I have done to her kid, they now claim that we violated child labor laws and she'll report us to the state labor board. but she'd be happy not to if they take the reasonable step of dismissing me. I know there are nutty parents around chess, but this is the first time I've had prolonged close exposure to one. I'm not worried at all, but I feel bad for the kid. He was nice and respectful, and a part of me wonders where he gets it from, since it certainly isn't from his mother. And no, he wasn't showing any signs of distress from me analyzing a game with him. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.